In the closing years of the Sengoku era, Japan was consumed by perpetual conflict.
What's the matter, Stray? Nothing left to lose? Well, would you look at that? Will you join me, starving wolf? That day, I pulled you from the battlefield. I had no idea what you'd become.
Hello everybody, and welcome to this video looking at the latest trailer to land for Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. This is a game that is in development by FromSoftware and is being published by Activision. FromSoftware is best known, I guess, for the Dark Souls series, also Bloodborne and Demon Souls, and before that Armored Core and Kingsfield and Lost Kingdoms and plenty of other games besides. It's a developer that's been around for a very long time, but it's safe to say that over the last generation or so, it's really picked itself up to become, I guess, the premier and most commercially exciting developer in the Japanese market, certainly as far as the West is concerned. FromSoftware games seem to be gold upon gold, and they don't seem to be able to do anything wrong right now, which is probably why Activision is interested in them as a company and has decided to publish this one. It's an unusual combination. When the game was announced, I think it was E3 last year, a few people were surprised that the partnership happened, but you know, it makes sense. I mean, Activision has the kind of scale that FromSoftware appreciates in terms of being able to bring its game to market and publish it and promote it and so on. And obviously FromSoftware is a developer that Activision can trust to do the right thing, to create something that's, you know, eye-opening and interesting and will resonate well with consumers. So I don't think that there's going to be too much of an issue with it being an Activision published game. It probably won't feel too much different to some of the other FromSoftware games that have been released in recent times. But yes, that's neither here nor there. I just wanted to talk about this trailer really because, like I said, it has only just dropped and it's called the story trailer, and as I'm a story person, I was always going to be interested by this. It's only a minute long, as you would have seen before I started to talk, but even so, there's a little bit in there that's worth chatting about, and I guess that's where this video is coming from. Now, I want to say before I get into talking about it much more, I've actually kept myself fairly blacked out about what's been going on with Sekiro. Like I said, I'm a big fan of FromSoftware, and I immediately assumed that they were going to create something that I was going to really like. So I haven't been too actively following along with it. I don't know how much of what's in here has really been shared already, what people already knew. I know that people had a vague idea what the game's about. As far as I'm aware, there hasn't been too much that's been revealed. It's been a fairly quiet release, lead up to the release, especially by Activision standards, and certainly this trailer only gives you about a minute's look at it, so it's not a hugely in-depth look into what the story will be, but there are some intriguing little things in there that are worth talking about, and certainly catch my attention. So apologies if some of this stuff that I'm going through you already know. Like you said, I like to go into my games as much as possible with a blank slate so I can just enjoy them raw and as the developer I guess intended. So I've kept myself out of this, but yeah, I mean, the obvious thing, the first up is the setting of the game, where it's set. It's set in Sengoku period, or just after the Sengoku period. And for me, that's something that's very interesting. I'm a big fan of the Sengoku period of history. I've actually been to a number of the battlefields that Sengoku that occurred through the Sengoku period in Japan. I've read dozens of books easily. I play every Samurai Warriors game that comes out and all that. If this game is set just after the Sengoku period, as seems to be the implication, because the trailer mentions that, you know, it's towards the end of the Sengoku period, and then you play as this young boy that finds a sword on the battlefield, grown up, so that implies afterwards. That would actually place it at about the same period of time as Nioh, the Koei Tecmo published Souls-like game, because Nioh was a fantasy story, of course, but it was the story of William Adams, and William Adams came to Japan immediately after the Sengoku period in real history. So that seems to place them at about the same point in Japan's very long history, which is a great time. That's a time where the samurai class was obviously dominant. There was a lot of combat. Martial training was very important, and it had all of those things around honor and seppuku and all those kinds of quintessentially samurai things were very much the focus of the culture at that point in time, which makes it, you know, good for action-based video games, I guess. One of the things I'm going to be really interested to see about this game is how it works in with the real history of the Sengoku period, or immediately post-Sengoku period, and how it implements some of the characters and personalities into the game, because the Sengoku period is so well known, because everybody has their favourite general from the period, really, and it was a time in which there were so many very distinctive generals, each with their own personalities and each with their own approaches to their job as the lord of their lands, and the relationships they built with other generals, the betrayals, all of that kind of stuff made for a very intriguing period of history. And I felt that Nioh did a very good job of implementing those characters, even though it was obviously a very fantasy-based a game, and it had all the kind of Oni and demons and all that kind of stuff. It did use those characters in a very clever way to give some kind of grounding to the actual history of the time, and that helps place it. You know, that helps the game give you a sense of context. It helps you ground the game in something. And if you know much about the Sengoku period, it helps you to really kind of get involved with the world and see it as, you know, something very distinctly Japanese if it's using the characters in an appropriate way. And it seems like it will. This trailer, one of the characters that is in one of the fight scenes looks like it might be Shingen Takeda. The body armor and the face mask seem to be implying that that general from history. So if that's the case, then that's certainly something that I'm looking forward to. But again, this might be set immediately after Sengoku period, so there might be different kind of historical figures used immediately after the Sengoku period. It was very much Japan became very much locked down under the rule of Ieyasu Tokugawa, and that would make for an interesting ninja story, which is obviously what Sekiro is. It's a story about ninja. But once the wars themselves finished, the next generation or so became a matter of kind of political intrigue, as Ieyasu consolidated his power, made sure that he was keeping all the other generals in line and all that kind of stuff. So there's plenty of potential there for this game to really play with history and rework it and be quite interesting with it. So I'm certainly hoping that FromSoftware has done that. And this is a very interesting game from FromSoftware, because FromSoftware, despite being such a well-renowned Japanese developer and a very distinctively Japanese developer, hasn't really done too much with Japanese history and Japanese characters and Japanese settings in the past. Demon Souls and Dark Souls were obviously based in a kind of gothic medieval Europe, and Bloodborne was essentially based in a kind of Victorian horror nightmare. And before that, you know, Kingsfield and all that kind of stuff, they were much more kind of generic fantasy worlds. So this is the first time, really, that we've got a very distinctively Japanese game from FromSoftware. And I think that's going to be good for the developer, because you're always most comfortable working within your own culture. Everybody who works at FromSoftware would be well and truly familiar with this period of history, these characters, the setting and all of that kind of stuff, the culture that was around at those times. This is stuff that, you know, Japanese kids learn at school and would be very familiar with. So going into it, there'll be that deeper sense of lore right from the outset. And that's not to say anything critical of Dark Souls or Demon Souls, and I think they did an amazing job of recapturing or capturing that kind of setting and vibe and all that. But I think that this game will be a more natural fit for FromSoftware, which is ultimately going to be great for us, because this game could be a very deep and interesting one, really. Anyway, those are my thoughts about this video. Again, it's only a minute-long trailer, unfortunately. So while it's certainly intriguing, we don't have too many concrete details about it. I don't know too much more about it. I'm going to go back into lockdown now and avoid any further information about this game until I have a chance to play it. But of course, I will have a review of this game up on digitallydownloaded.net once I have got my teeth sunk right into it. But yeah, once again, I will say that this game has the potential of being one of the highlights of the year, if not the game of the year. I know it's stupidly early to be making those kinds of predictions, but FromSoftware has that heritage, and this game has the setting that it could very much come across to me anyway to be a game that's really kind of made exclusively for me, or something at least that I feel very comfortable and very comfortable playing. So yeah, very much looking forward to it. Stay tuned for more, and we will see you at the next video. I hope you enjoyed the trailer. I hope it got you excited for Sekiro if you weren't already. Thanks very much for watching.